is important. So key thing in this is consultation with stakeholders. You could have a process, you could have committees, you could have records of consultation, and then based on whatever inputs you get based on stakeholder consultations, you can, as a faculty team or the program managers, you can draft PEOs. So here is the first action point while going for PEOs. Draft proposed POs, check them for alignment with the university vision, mission, institute strategy, consult stakeholders, finalize the POs in the program review committee, define performance standards. Performance standard is a target. Target it in terms of percentage achievement, where you could have any scale. We'll come to that performance standard again in a while talking about course outcomes. Decide as to what indirect measures would be used to assess the PEOs. So pre-planned PEOs, what kind of surveys, what kind of instrument would you use? Can you use standard PEO instrument? Map that instrument questions to a PEO to assess the attainment of the performance on each of the PEO, right? Particularly for indirect measures. Then the next stage is, after having defined the PEOs, defining program outcomes. The key question is, what do I expect the students to know, do, and demonstrate which values at the end of the program? So this is in terms of competencies. PEOs are directional in nature. These are outcomes. These have to be more specific, right? And there are two kinds of outcomes people talk about: program outcomes and program-specific outcomes. The programs, or the difference between the two is program outcomes, as NAC defines it, there is a difference of opinion here in the regulatory agencies too. They expect every program to have a program PO, PSOs. POs generally are defined for a set of programs. They are called higher education objectives. A common program, if there is a BA program, BA history, BA psychology, um, BA economics, right? All these programs are there. For all arts graduate, has to be a common set of competencies, program outcomes. Those are called program outcomes, and they will be common to all these BA programs, right? If you have a common set of programs for which the POs are defined, they are called POs. And for each of the program, you can have a set of programs specific to that program, right? Those are called program specific outcomes, right? So NAC says that if you have, let's say, for all MBA programs, right, you would have a set of outcomes which are common to all MBA programs. In addition to that, you can have some specific outcomes if you're running an MBA operations management, if you're running MBA marketing management, right? So all those common programs are called program outcomes, and specific to that program, a set of 2-3 outcomes which are specific to that program in the context of the institute, those are called PSOs. So do you have POs or PSOs defined? That's a key question in any of the accreditation agency, particularly NAC. Any question on this? See, the treatment of POs and PSOs is the same. So materially, a PO and PSO is interchangeable in the context of the program. But if you have, if you're evolving a common set of program outcomes for a set of programs, then it makes sense to have additional PSOs. The other way of looking at it is generic higher education outcomes, which are related to generic competencies, communication skills, problem solving skills, team building skills, right? Or 20th century skills. These are common generic outcomes. Those are called POs. And in the domain of the program, if you're mentioning some outcomes, those are called program specific outcomes. Are we on the same page?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
If anyone would like to ask anything.
Please feel free to just unmute yourself and ask a question, right? But having undergone that cycle once, I think it is easy to understand. All these terms would be known to you, so would not be difficult unless there are some specific questions related to that. So this is NBA Engineering Education. NBA is a signatory to Washington Accord. So based on that, they have said that every engineering graduate world over has to have these 12 graduate attributes. NBA has converted these graduate attributes to program outcomes, and these graduate attributes in Indian context for NBA, it is called program outcomes. And what they say, the engineering colleges are different, the context is different. So every engineering program has to have these 12 graduate attributes as program outcomes. And in addition to that, the each of the engineering program can have a specific set of outcomes, 3 4 outcomes, which are specific to that program in the context of the program. So is treated as the same because you need to compute performance on PO attainment as well as PSO attainment. It helps you categorize the performance into PO and PSO and find out where you stand in terms of POs or PSOs in terms of performance. So this is an example of PO and PSO sample undergraduate general degree programs. So here although the nomenclature of the degree might vary, for each level they have given program outcomes. And based on the major specialization, you can have a specific program specific outcome, right? So this is again a sample of program outcomes. These are PSO sample. Now this is a common program, general higher education outcomes, you may call, but PSO sample specific outcomes to BSc zoology, right? Some of the languages I have picked it up from some document, and there are gaps. Like for example, understand is a level and not a action verb. The POs and PSO should always be in terms of the action verbs. Uh, Example PSO for BA economics. So after having understood the sorry, yeah, having understood the POO and PSO, the distinction between the two, the next action point is define POs and PSOs, draft proposed POs and PSOs, consult stakeholders, check them for alignment with the university vision, mission, strategy, and PEOs. Finalize the POs and PSOs in the program review committee, whatever structure that you have. There could be a program review committee, there could be a board of studies, there could be a departmental committee. Governance structures would vary from university to university and college to college based on so maybe there is a governing council, or there is an academic body which is an authority within the institute. So you can put it up and get their approval. Define performance standards. Performance standards are target for each of the program outcome. You need to set a standards. This is the minimum standards that every student should reach. If he or she doesn't reach that standard, the um, program outcome is not attained for that student, right? Or for that course. Decide as to what indirect measures would be used to assess POs, student exit interviews, surveys, recruiter feedback, etc. And then mapping PEO to PO and PO to graduate attributes. Okay. So is this stage clear? You must have gone through this all, right? Shiva ma'am?
Yes, sir.
So you must have gone through all these stages. So everybody would be aware about this.
Sir, POs and PSOs, it's very clear, but in our case, POs are not there. So I think we have to work in that line. And the rest, POs we have already framed, that is in line with the NAC document,
Yeah.
and PSOs also for separate programs.
In terms of the competencies. So competencies for a role that is visualized for a student, right?
Okay.
So even if formally you may not have PEOs for technical reasons because NAC doesn't require it, why have those PEOs? But NBA does require it, and it is a process element which is imperative, not mandatory, but imperative to define POs and
Yes,
PSOs.
yes, sir, we understand. Thank you.
Then coming back to the faculty's role in this. So after these POs are defined, you have a set of courses, and each of the course you need to define this. This there is a reflection sheet as an exercise which I'll share with you, and probably how to arrive at CO. But we are doing a comprehensive exercise on this defining COs, right? So I'll whatever is mentioned in the bracket, we'll deal with that separately. But defining COs is what faculty does, mapping COs to POs based on the assessments and the course outcome that he has in mind. Then, after having defined the COs, using the syllabus and methods to help the student attend the COs, performance on the COs, you need to prepare a session plan. So, if you feel it comfortable, I can share the session plan that I've prepared, which is OBE aligned session plan. But you could have your own session plan, which is there being made operational at the institute level. Then second is prepare assessment plan, because each of the CO needs to be assessed, right? So you need to pre-plan what CO is being assessed, in what manner, and what is the performance standard for that CO. There is a template for that. I'll share that template with you. Then implement plan, and then review analytics to improve plan outcome standards and conduct remedial classes. This is what a faculty's role is in the outcome-based analytics. So the first thing, contribute to defining define COs, right? Contribution to the making of the curricular plan, which is mapping of COs to POs, right? Then implementation plans, prepare session plan, prepare assessment plan, implement those plans, and after implementation, the marks are aggregated, the reports are made available. Use those reports to improve the quality further, right? That's what a faculty's role is, and trackability of all this is important from accreditor's point of view. So, what were the outcomes? How did you implement it? After having implemented it, what kind of attainment analytics did you get? What were the insights that you learned from this teaching learning quality and help the students perform better? Right? Those are the questions that would need to be addressed, and a faculty member should be prepared on that. So session plan, I'll come to that, but so action point number 3, course outcomes, define outcomes for all courses offered curriculum, all courses offered in the MAC, the course outcomes of all courses to the program outcomes. So I will show you this COPO map, right? How do you, it's a simple matrix. But is it relevant in your context? Because I don't know what is the mapping scale that you use and what kind of mapping you do. But I will nonetheless show what we are doing here and the variations possible in that. Review the mapping to ensure that all POs are mapped to COs and there is no hanging POs not addressed by any of the CO. So there should not be a PO which is not being assessed in any of the courses, right? At the same time, there should not be a CO which is not mapped to any PO. Otherwise, that course outcome, why are you trying to deliver it to students, right? So the whole plan has to be in the context of the program, and it is based on constructive alignment. A review to make sure that all COs are assessed and all courses are mapped to POs. Establish a review mechanism to ensure quality of the session and assessment plan. So this generally, when a faculty member makes his plan, it should be reviewed by a peer, informally, formally, whatever mechanism want to establish. And in some formal forum, maybe quality assurance, you may have QIC or IQAC wherever, vetted by peer, and it has to be in the context of the program. Right? So that's the action point number 4. Get the session plan, assessment plan implemented. Use the analytics to review performance on the COs and POs. Incorporate the learning in the next cycle to improve performance on the outcomes. And this is the PO definition. These are some of the templates. What is the PO number? What is the description? What is the performance standard? Performance standards, it could be in terms of percentage. It could be in terms of, if you're using a 3-point scale, strong, weak, moderate, and you're computing attainment on those scales, you can have 1, 2, 3, moderate, high, or low attainment, right? If you're using a 1 to 100 scale, you can put a percentage standard here, right? You can use a 10-point scale, right? Whatever scale you are using, you can put the performance standard there. The second template is PO definition. Again, the same thing: PO PSO number, PO PSO description, performance standard, indirect measures identified. You should identify it pre-facto. Links, and then these are the mapping document, right? Strong, moderate, weak, and nil. This is the 4-point scale that we use: 100%, 50%, 25%, and 0%. right? So essentially a 3-point scale, because 0 does not count. So the PO is mapped to PEO. You can mention whether it is strongly or moderately or weakly linked. Like, for example, you can mention strong and the weightage associated with this. This may be strongly linked, this may be weakly linked, right? And all those terms you can use. Some of the, not all POs have to be mapped to all POs, right? Some of the cells can be, cells in the matrix can be vacant, right? This is a generic mapping document which you can use. Again, PO to GA, same, and here CO to PO. I have 4 course outcome. The first outcome is mapping to this PO strongly, right? Second outcome moderately. This is mapping strongly. This could be mapping weakly. Right? And some of the outcomes may not be mapping to any of the outcomes. That is also possible. But at the course level, this plan is okay. But at the program level, right, none of the POs should be hanging. There should be some course outcome or the other, at least 2, which should be mapped to a PO, right? So this is sample COs, but not rightly defined. I just wanted to point out some mistakes. We come to that. And that's an overview of yeah. So that's an overview of the OBE model. So is that fine with you? Any questions on that? So overall understanding of the OBE context, and then we can go on to writing specific course outcomes.
So, sir,
Yeah.
so in that matrix, not all the cells are going to be filled up, and that's all right.
Yeah, it's all right. If let's say I'm running a course and I'm contributing, my course is contributing to only 4 POs, right? Some of these POs can be vacant in my course, but at the program level, there should be, every PO should be mapped to some course outcome or the other. There are, let's say, 10 courses in a set of in a program. Let's say certificate program, 10 courses. So some courses will contribute to developing some competency, and the course would contribute to developing some competencies very strongly, some competencies moderately, and some competencies not at all, right? So at the
Right.
course level, you can afford to have some POs which are unmapped to that course, right? Or the course unmapped to some of the POs. But at the program level, if you review the curricular map, at the program level, every PO should be mapped and assessed in it, and the attainment should be computed for every PO. So maybe statistics as a course may not contribute to some competency. Right? Marketing management as a course would map to a certain set of competencies, maybe domain related or some skills related. It may not map to all the competencies. That is for the faculty to decide and a peer to vet. Right? Once they together decide, then it is fine if some of the POs are not mapped at the course level.
But there should be uh, definitely some connection with for each of the PO to at least a few of the COs.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yeah. Minimally 2 courses should map to a PO. Otherwise, that PO is under assessed.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yeah.
Like since we are following this PO, PSO, and COs format, in
Yeah.
our case, what we have done, we have tried to map the COs with the PSOs because this POs are basically for all the undergraduate. NAC has given that kind of a overview. Like POs means all undergrads will have this kind of after completing the course or after 3 years after the completion of the graduation, they will have all these kind of competencies. So in our case, like we have mapped COs with the PSOs. COs and PSOs means, for example, BA program, BA
Hmm.
history, or BSW, Bachelor's in Social Work. We try to map with the COs of BSW course program with the PSOs. So are we traveling in the right track?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, PO and PSO can be interchangeably used.
Okay.
So when generally happens, you have POs for BA, common POs for BA history, BA psychology, and BA
Okay.
economics,
Okay.
right? So it entails that every graduate of a general higher education should have attained these competencies at the end of the respective program,
Sure.
right?
Oh,
So those are POs for every program, BA Psychology, BA Economics, and BA History too.
okay. It's
But
just in. uh,
yeah, PSOs are specific to BA Psychology. So those are POs specific to psychology program. That's why they are called PSOs. Otherwise, materially, there is no difference between the treatment that you administer to PSO and PO,
Okay, sir. Because
right?
since we have done this much of work, we just wanted to make sure that are we traveling in the right track or not?
Yeah,
Because so far,
yeah.
whatever
Because
you have described,
your
like you know,
your outcomes at the program level is a combination of POs and PSOs, whatever way
uh,
you define it.
okay, right.
Right. So when you are putting outcomes for BA psychology program, you are putting the POs for general higher education, any undergraduate program together, along with the PSO for BA program, BA psychology program, right? PSO for BA psychology program.
So
So
here in this case, sir, COs should be matched with the PSOs, no?
no, all COs should be mapped to PO and PSO.
PO and PSO both.
Yeah. Otherwise, how would the generic competencies have to be attained through the program? So what is being mapped to the POs?
Yes, so helpful.
But CO has a apparently CO is also should also have a close connection with PSO actually.
Yes.
CO PSO mapping is obvious.
Sir, CO-PO mapping is also obvious because they're part of the program, right? Generic competencies are to be delivered through the routine. So when you teach marketing management, you just don't teach marketing, only marketing, right? The student looks at the teacher, absorbs some values. The student is made to go through certain exercises which helps him improve his team building skills. You assess the student on presentation skills too, right?
But in a matrix, we can only use sir two of these things, either PO-CO mapping or PSO-CO mapping.
No, it should not be the case. I will go into a little more details, but PO, PSO, they PSO too. So if you don't have any PO, COs which are mapped to, which are not, you don't have any CO which is mapped to POs, how would the attainment of the PO computed? Direct attainment.
Yes.
Right. So PO attainment has to be there, PSO attainment has to be there. The degree might vary based on the nature of the course, right?
How will we show it, sir? How will we show it on paper? I mean, any model if you have.
Paper is so the only thing that happens, you identify, say, is this a PSO? So the PSOs that you have get added to the list of POs, right? And those
Okay,
becomes
okay.
program
That way.
outcomes at the program level.
Okay, okay, okay.
And when you at the report level, you want specific performance on the PSOs. What is my attainment level specific on PSOs? Domain competencies particularly.
So POs and
Specific domain
PSOs can be interchanged and then it can be mapped. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they can be used interchangeably, and the treatment of the POs and PSOs is the same. The only classification is PSOs are specific to that program, and because they are specific, you need to compute attainment and understand that attainment report on those more importantly, right? Am I answering your question, sir? Have I answered your question, sir?
Yes, sir. Got it. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Actually,
PO,
PO PSOs can be interchangeably used and then it can be easily mapped. Yes.
yeah. So the treatment for POs is the same as treatment for PSO. If the course is
Exactly.
mapping to a particular PO or PSO, it should be mapped to that PO or PSO.
No, I was just hypothetically thinking about some three variable construct where CO is leading to PSO and then PSO is ultimately somewhere leading to some of the PO. If at all we consider PSO is under the umbrella of PO.
Yeah.
But anyway, it doesn't matter. So the
PO,
level is
PSO
the same.
are at the same level.
Yeah.
It is what I think what you're thinking is CO to PO and PO to CO to PSO. PSO, that contribution comes to PO and then PO to PO. It is not that way, sir. PO,
It is not that
PSO at
way.
the
I
same
got
level.
that. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Sure.
So the attainment has to be computed for both PO and PSO. Although the
Yes.
regulators might ask you what is the attainment performance on PSO, have you separately identified it? So if you just in the software, if you have a provision to identify this is a PSO, and then you get a report. If you get that input, you will get a report on PSOs. What is the attainment levels on PSO? What are the attainment levels on POs? right? But PO
Sure.
attainment levels are important, not just PSO. PO attainment levels are equally important because large part of the program is for POs.
Exit survey phase
Mm.
are going.
Mm.
Okay.
Sir, I
Yeah,
have just asking, sir, regarding the exit survey. NAC has
yeah,
recommended that exit survey could be used as one of the indirect method to calculate the program outcome attainment. So,
yeah.
like, how it is going to, can it be considered as one of the, reliable ways of measuring program level outcome?
Ma'am, there are two measures that generally OBE talks about. One is a direct measure and indirect measures. Direct measures are more important because they're generally given a weightage of 70 to 80%. So mostly the computation happens on the basis of direct measures. Indirect measures is a supporting measures because the perception of the participant or the student is important, equally important. It is not just important that the student is imparted that competency. It is also important that the student also feels that he has been imparted that competency, right? So combination of that, but indirect measures contribute not more than 30% to the extent of not more than 30% in all
Yes,
models that I've seen. Yeah.
yes, sir.
So if the question is about PO mapping, POs, the course outcomes have to be mapped to POs and PSOs, right?
Sure.
And the
Okay.
attainment has to be computed that way.
Sir, for calculating this attainment, I think I'll be contacting you maybe after the session or maybe in a day or two so that we can
Sure.
get a little more idea because we have an IT division. So
Mhm.
the IT division also can probably look into this.
Yeah. So I can take a look at what currently you're doing, and then maybe if there are quick improvements possible because you're going in for the next cycle of
Yes,
implementation,
sir.
right? In the month of January.
Right.
So the
Okay, sir.
data
Thank
would
you.
be there. It's just some mapping changes. If it they get to be incorporated, probably you get attendance statistics better.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
So if the OBE overall, if it is there is a clarity, then we can go on to writing, trying to write some specific outcomes. I have seen some of the documents. Ma'am had suggested that I go through some of the documents that you have prepared the syllabus document. Not here, not here. Just give me a second. Yeah. So these are some of your syllabus that I have referred to sample syllabus. I just randomly downloaded those, right? Is this the right document that I'm referring to, ma'am? So this is the
Yes,
syllabus.
sir.
So we want to look at some of the course outcome that are mentioned, right? So so don't take offense because this is just randomly picked. Some faculty members have drafted it. I'm not pointing anything. It's just the generically we will find out some there are some gaps or not. So these are learning objective. Let's not go into details of that. Learning outcomes, right? There are three outcomes mentioned, right? Students will understand the influences on the basic features of foreign policy, right? So the term understand is a level and is an internal process that happens in the minds of students, right? So understanding means, yeah. So instead of understanding, if you refer to what does understanding means, it means comprehension. So what is that? If you take a look at the Bloom's taxonomy verbs there, so the second level understanding. So it is about demonstration of understanding. If that term is used, demonstration of understanding, that is fine to a certain extent. But to be a little more specific, one should identify what do I expect the student to do? Or do I expect him to classify, compare, contrast, demonstrate, explain, extend, illustrate, infer, interpret, outline? So one of these verbs could be used in place of understanding to make the outcome drafting a little better, right? Similarly,
Sure, sir.
knowing, knowledge, right? Again, knowing is the first level. Second, the word mentioned here are choose, define, find, how, label, list, match, name. So one of these words could be used. Now let us take a look at this concept. What is mentioned here? Students will know I'll just expand. Will know the challenges that India faces in the neighborhood and the reasons behind the policy perspectives. So the gap here is knowing is an internal process, but the behavior, knowing is not a behavioral verb. So you won't be able to assess it. So if you use, the student will be able to so pick up one of these verbs, right? Recall, or maybe show or demonstrate or relate, select. One of these verbs would be a better expression. And because these verbs, whatever outcomes you write, they need to be assessed. Right? So they should give the teacher a direction as to how the same can be assessed. Right? And quite a few places this understanding, and this is not. There are multiple places, even UGC LOCF document you look at, or even some of the international accreditation agency documents you look at, this is a common mistake that they make. Understand is not an action verb. Know is not an action verb, right? So these should be changed. Another question is 3 outcomes, right? Is it good enough to comprehensively capture the essence of the course, right? So the number of outcomes is decided by 2 forces, as I spoke earlier. The first force is that as a faculty, I want a very fine judgment. I want every single concept to be tested and students to be assessed on every single concept. But that's not practically possible. You can have possibly an outcome for every concept that you teach in the class, or every interaction that you can have. Because every interaction is also a learning experience. Every class is a learning experience. But it is not practical to assess everything, because you don't have so many assessment opportunities. At the same time, you need a fine judgment as to what topics have learned, what aspects the student hasn't learned. So does it give you a granular judgment? And it is up to the faculty and aided by peers, you can decide. 3 outcomes is not something which I say it is a wrong number, but you could really, based on this, you can think about how many outcomes to have, right? That is one insight that I can share with you. Similarly, for other courses too, like for example, after studying the paper, one should identify and explain. This is an action verb, right? Analyze, this is an action verb. Various principles of organizations. Develop skill, right, of personal administration. But this is too general, right? Understand, optimum, again understand, right? It should be avoided. This is some of the insights that I can share, and this is for other syllables too, right? I can pick up some here. So again, this understand, basic knowledge, right? So maybe you can use match the pairs, or whatever terms are mentioned here. Label, list, right? Match, name. So if these terms are used, then that would be a better defined outcome compared to what it is now. But capturing the essence of yeah. So do you want me to go through some other additional documents, or should we go on to the exercise of trying to write outcomes? And
So yeah, we can continue with the exercise. So now we understood, like, how to work on this. And the document which you have recently shared, that is the 3rd year document of BA program. And now yearly pattern, this is the last batch of yearly pattern. Now we
okay,
have implemented NEP. So we are giving more focus to semester 1 and semester 3 right now. Like,
okay,
because then 2nd year, the 3rd year batch will move out, and by with this batch, the yearly pattern will come to an end, because MP has introduced NEP in last year for the undergrad
yeah, I
program.
would say FYUP, the 4-year program. We are still struggling with that. So good, good. You're in good state because NEP is introducing a singularity, and institutions can take lead. Uh,
Uh, yeah, yes, sir. We can. I think we can continue with the exercise if you.
yes, I'll share one link with you, and just give me a second. So online is something which I'm not very sending message. Okay. So I've shared one link. You can click on that link, and there is a beautiful generator, outcome generator there. And for writing outcomes, there is a simple methodology, ABCD methodology that it easy to remember. A is audience, B is behavior, action, verb, and the noun connected with it. What action, verb, and what is expected, the goal. And the third thing is conditions, right? If you mention these three things, the outcome is complete, right? So if you got the link,
Yes, sir. We got the link. It is in the chat box.
yeah. So I'll share screen and share that window with you. Share. So this is the thing that you must have got, right?
Yes, sir.
Did it open your screen? So it talks about four questions here: who, what, how, and let get low, right? So just mention you find out new learning objectives. So who is your expected participant? Maybe student of this program, student, right? Then what do you get? What do you want him to do, right? You get the Bloom's taxonomy list here, right? Are you able to see the screen? So if you're talking about a first level, second level, third level, so say I want him to let's say list. Hmm? What? Click on goal, and then you mention elements of marketing mix.
Students will be able to list elements of marketing mix.
And then how, that I need not mention what is the condition, right? Generically, right? So you got this. You can copy to clipboard and paste on your wherever you want to. Right now, take a word copy and paste it. The outcome is defined. So this ensures that you don't actually use a verb which is not an action verb. Of course, the action verbs are not limited to list of Bloom's taxonomy. There could be action verbs which are beyond Bloom's taxonomy. What section? Who? Let's say student, right? Biology. So you can there could be double on economic students. So whatever you want to describe the students, that's also possible. Choose the level of the. So if you want to apply, so what do you want to do? Apply what marketing mix or understanding of marketing mix. And then go to how. You can type to whatever. You can mention conditions. I'm just randomly picking and putting it there, right? So then you can go to and then copy and paste this outcome. This is the way you can generate easily the outcomes. So you can try doing it for your own course, and maybe some of you can share those outcomes here, right? Are you able to use this?
Yes, sir.
So
Earlier.
maybe you can try writing 2, 3 outcomes and share it on the screen so that we can be sure that you are able to draft outcomes. One website that I can share with you is one second. So this link, if you go to, I'm sharing another link. There are several courses, right? And there is a catalog of the courses which is given on this website. And although there are some mistakes some places, but majority of the places you would find the outcomes to be nicely defined. Try putting this as the marketing principles as a course, right? Student learning outcomes are given there. Infer is a second level, right, verb, and infer the importance of role of marketing in the global environment. Describe the scope and process of marketing. Explain the importance of ethical marketing practices. Describe. So all these are action verbs, right? 4 outcomes that are mentioned. There for this course, there are multiple outcomes, almost 13 outcomes, right? But everywhere you would see that the action verbs are mentioned, right? Use, identify, complete, and there is a noun connected and there is a condition given. So marketing research as a course, you can take a look at this and say all the action verbs are used. So for every course, I've shortlisted marketing courses, but for every course there are some outcomes given. Assess and identify, justify, present data, interpret analytically, combine conceptual marketing, critically evaluate, identify. Okay. So this is a full-fledged catalog that you would have, and you can say find out, let's say, humanities courses from here. I'm not saying these outcomes would be relevant to you, but you can refer to this to find out what is the best way, or maybe you can refer to this to find out, because these are little uh, more geography courses, right? Physical geography and other phases, human geography, diversity, world regions and development. So what are the outcomes? Identify, describe and explain. So two verbs should not be combined because it becomes a bit difficult to assess them. Generally, you should use one verb and write one outcome. Um, Identify the major features and describe. So whether you want to describe or you want him to identify. So both are action level 2 verbs, so should not be a problem. Recognize and distinguish. Level 2, so should not be a problem. But if you use different level verbs, combining them, then there could be a problem in assessing that. So it is important to note that whenever you write outcomes, the level of assessment should be the same. If you are asking the outcome level is apply the concept, then you should assess the application ability of the student and not describe, right? If the question is describe, you cannot map it to that outcome because the level is higher. Students of commerce, yeah, good. So I'll just take a look at some of the mathematics students will be able to memorize formula. Memorize, is that an action verb? I'm not sure. Ma'am? Purnima ma'am, just check whether memorize formulae for solving, right? Solve integration function. Solve is a function, yes, because you can test that. Memorization is again an internal process that is happening. It is not an action verb. So it is not observable, so not accessible. Right. So action verbs is an important thing. Computer science students will be able to explain programming methodology using algorithm. Yes, perfect, sir. Students of commerce will be able to recognize capital markets and money market instruments, identify and explain its features when given a case. Yes, but two, three verbs combined together, would you be able to assess that together and map it to an assessment instrument? Just check that, otherwise it is fine. Students will be able to define basic concept after the course, but here is a define basic concepts. Not very clear at stage 3 and 4. Ritvik sir?
So when it asks for how and let go, no sir, in that stage I am saying it's not. So who is okay? Who? The moment we type students, it will give you option. Okay, students you're talking about.
Yeah.
Hot may it will offer you certain action verbs. That's
Yes.
okay. So that helps. How and let go, it doesn't really make sense because anyway we are framing our own statement.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
how
yeah.
is this? So how is this tool helping us? Much better.
No, it is about identification of the action verbs, and you can draft and put it in that tool. It's just a tool which is which helps you
Yeah.
identify
So
the
that
action
second
verbs.
part
But
helps a
not
lot.
that the statement of the outcome is your own, right?
Yes.
And there is a way to configure a way to put that in the software. And I'm not suggesting use of the software. It is just it restricts our scope, and it helps you us by doing that. Otherwise, what we generally do, we write an outcome, then refer to the list, find out what is there in the list, whether the verb is there in the list or which is the right verb, which is readily available there.
Frankly, yes, sir. Frankly, I found making own statement is easier than. I mean, it's okay. It's equally good.
Yeah.
This tool is also for second stage. It really helps with the verbs and all. Automated process
Yes.
helps.
And the condition part, even for example, now instead of students, you want to say at the end of the program, the students, you type it there, it will take in there.
It suggests. It
Yeah.
suggests. Yeah.
So you write instead of students, you write at the end of the program because it just combines all these statements together. The only part is the action verb part, which is useful to us.
Mhm.
The rest of the statements, and I would suggest that you do refer to the outcomes that the link that I shared with you. There are still mistakes there. I'm not saying every course outcome is nicely drafted. Majority, 99% of the outcomes are nicely drafted there. The CAL website that I shared with you, the university website, and the whole catalog is there. So if you take a look at a course which is relevant to you, go through that list of outcomes that you mentioned. Maybe some of them are not relevant to you, but it would give you some reference document while drafting your outcomes for your course. Maybe they've given 12, but you think that only 4 or 5 are good enough for me.
At
But
least this ensures, sir, that there
you,
should not be mistakes like the one you mentioned.
yes,
So
and there
so
are
to that extent, it is helpful.
even in that website, you would find some courses there are mentioned, the verbs are mentioned like knowing or understanding. It's not perfect, but quite a few places I've referred to, even the NAC SSR reports I've referred to, these mistakes are common. Even UGC documents, the LOC documents, the such kind of usage is common, but it's a mistake. Here too, in this university website, one or two places you would find that mistake is there, but majority the outcomes are nicely drafted. At least outcomes, whether they comprehensively capture what should be there in the course, the nature of the course. Some places it is just 4, some places it is 13, 14, 15, right? So a faculty can make a judgment. It's just it gives some reference document for a faculty member to review whether this is, and he can apply his own wisdom and judgment to pick up the right outcomes. So
Yes, but yes,
so
definitely.
intelligent adoption is what I would suggest,
It definitely
rather than
facilitates.
reinventing the wheel. That's what I've been doing, because so much of literature on the net. So basic things you don't need to redo. So I've been referring to net pretty often, right?
Okay, sir,
Um,
sure.
so um, so I hope that over a period of the last 2 days, what we have done is we have tried to understood Bloom's taxonomy, 3 domains in Bloom's taxonomy, the affective, then the psychomotor, and the cognitive domain. Most of the focus is still on the cognitive domain, and majority of the outcomes are written in the cognitive domain only. Uh, but yes, we should also refer to the other two lists, particularly when it comes to values or these doing skills, right? For example, repetition of something that is being done, demonstrated in the class, right? It is not that the student is independently doing it or creating something. He is just copying what a faculty member shows him. Or in engineering education or maybe design, disassemble a particular component, right? And reassemble it. That's a skill, right? Which is a verb which is connected with the psychomotor domain. One should refer to that list, but more often than not, cognitive list is what is referred to. And
So psychomotor domain will be more applicable for in terms of performing arts. Is that right?
yes,
Because then you
yes,
need to really
dance,
show
music,
and do. Yeah.
performing arts. Yes, performing arts are wherever doing is involved. Even in ITI education, you would see where doing is involved,
Yeah,
practicing,
demonstration is involved. Yes.
demonstration is involved, doing is involved. So
Okay.
when you talk of design, so more often than not, the students of design program would replicate what the teacher is showing them, right? He should be able to reproduce rather than design, right? It's not design. When cognitive
Right.
thinking, creating something, preparing a business plan is something at the create level, right? Evaluation is making judgment based on the learning concepts. So so refer to those lists. So that is what we saw yesterday. We saw it in the context of outcome-based education. Today we saw the intricacies, more intricacies of outcome-based education. How this is connected with the attainment computation, because the outcomes that you draft need to be assessed, and these verbs that you use, right? As long as you use another verb from the same level, right? Somewhere you may use apply, but using the while conducting assessments, when you conduct question papers or write make question draft question papers, there you can use a similar verb from the same list of verb belonging to that level. So the level should be maintained while assessing the outcomes, and those same assessment should be mapped to that outcome. Mapping and other details, these are intricacies of outcome based education, but the simple terms, it is very simple at the principal understanding level, that you have outcomes, you have curriculum. Then curriculum learning is a function of not just the curriculum, but how it gets delivered, learning and methods, teaching learning methods. And it is also not limited to what happens in the class, right? It is before the class, during the class, and after the class. A combination of that should be factored in while designing your teaching methods and the assessment methods too. More often than not, we don't use a valid assessment tools. Instead of the domain gets assessed through presentation. The presentation is more important. Somebody who is a great presenter would end up getting more score compared to somebody who understands the domain better but is weak at presentations. So the scores would tell the story, the analytics would tell the story if the mapping is appropriate. If the mapping is not appropriate, next cycle you would learn that there is something wrong. This student had learned better, but I don't think the assessment tool is valid. So maybe I'll change the assessment tool from this to that, right? So that is the learning curve. So designing sessions based on this, delivering those sessions, delivering assessments, implementing assessments. After having assessments, evaluating those assessments. The difference between assessment and evaluation is when you assign quantitative score to an assessment, that is called evaluation, right? E-value, that's a verb. So once evaluation, then use that evaluation to find out the CO attainment performance, student-wise, at the program level also, and at the institution level, you can combine programs and find out where you stand. So, so these, if it reaches a level of maturity, my CO attainment with this batch versus the next batch, is there an improvement, right? And keep on improving, right? So that's the essence of outcome based model, where it's establishing a virtuous cycle of improvement, quality improvement.
Sir, I have a question,
Yeah,
practical query,
yeah,
if you allow. Sir, all these things which we discussed for the last 2 days,
yeah.
all said and done, all theoretically sounds very good, and it is indeed very good. And but in your own experience as a head of academics at SIU Pune, to what extent you think these things are very feasible, practically feasible at regular intervals. I mean, doing it, mapping and special mapping and evaluating these outcomes.
Sir, there are two views on that. There's a faculty and as an administrator, right? As a
Right.
faculty, I have experimented with this evolved model, and as a faculty, I've done it for the course that I was teaching, marketing management. Right, I implemented a session plan, assessment plan, perfectly attend to that, and I
Mm.
could understand, I could get insights based on that as a faculty, right? Because I did it sincerely out of my own curiosity, right? The work, the quantum of work, because a faculty member needs to be a little more structured, at least in the initial stages, it involves efforts. But once structured, right, it is about once you do that exercise, once you do that mapping, once you prepare a session plan, um, once you identify case studies, everything is structured, then changes become so easy. Changing it becomes so easy. So you would have a document which is outcome based model, and then based on the audience, you would change here and there, and every year based on the analytics that you get, you keep on changing. The analytics, yes, if sincerely done at the course level, at least you where it is sincerely done. If it is not sincerely done, then it cannot be done. And a large part of it is subjective element. As a faculty, if you want to improve and find out quantitative score, because subjective judgment is there, you visualize the best student and visualize the worst student in the class, and you would be able to identify what outcome should be there, right? Visualize the
Mm.
best student in your class, and if you think that he's really the one who should clear my course, right? And then based on that, visualizing that student, you can look at he knows this, he knows this, he should know this, right? You can list those, and then if he doesn't know this, he should not. See, for example, I teach marketing management, right?
Mm.
Uh, Marketing management as a course, for me, the basic concepts are non-negotiable. A student needs to understand what is the distinction between need and want, what is demand. So if it's not, what is marketing perspective, right? Um,
That is
what,
your value system as a faculty.
as a faculty, as a teacher. So for me, it is non-negotiable. If a student does not understand the distinction between need and want, he should not clear my course,
Mm.
right? So I make that as non-negotiable. My target for that particular those sets of concept is 100%. There is another concept in marketing management which is called marketing audit, right? Which is cursorily touched upon. Nobody even bothers at it. My target is less than 20% for that particular topic. So I don't have an outcome related to that at all. So I can find out, and based on that, if I evolve paper, I can bet and vouch that my student who has cleared the course knows these concepts. Unless he knows these concepts, he cannot clear my course, right? So it does not happen overnight. It takes time. So even now, I can't with 100%. I'm disconnected with teaching for quite some time now, but then it is it takes a little bit of time, effort, and sincere what you call a little bit of sincerity. Beyond that, it doesn't take. There is a session plan document. Once you prepare a session plan, there is an assessment plan that you need to make. Questions you need to map, and that's one mapping is one time. Questions, of course, once you have a set of questions, any outcome you can draft 5, 10 questions. If the university is asking for a question back, then it is a rigorous exercise. But mapping a question paper that we are making and aligning it with the expectations outcome based model is yes, it is a job. It takes additional effort from the demands additional effort from the faculty side. But once done, the faculty member would have a sense of satisfaction and a better assessment of how he is running his own course. As an administrator, it is difficult. The fundamental the problem is buy-in from the faculty. Say 100%, even 70 faculty do it sincerely, and 30 faculty members don't do it sincerely. The program level analytics get hampered, and you do not get a really reflective picture. So, as a system, if every faculty member decide it is the outcome-based model is going to stay here for long run. It is in the interest of the faculty members to world over it is being practiced. It is not just in India. So, if as a faculty member you want to migrate to some other university, some other place, based model in some different format could be there, but it is everywhere. And tomorrow it is a reality tomorrow. From school education to higher education, everywhere it is going to be there. So as a faculty member, it takes a little bit of effort to understand this, draft outcomes, prepare your session plan, align your course with expectations of outcome-based model, and you will be a more insightful teacher and more sought-after teacher world over. So it is in everybody's interest to do that little bit of effort and understand, because the effort is not much. It is just look at Bloom's taxonomy, draft your outcomes, make your assessments as it is subjectively it is happening, right? Whatever
Yes.
you're doing internally, because the faculty member understand, is this student clearing my course? Does he understand or not? Right? There are limitations. We are operating within limitations, right? The administrators. Yet within those limitations, if we can practice and see real terms the outcome-based education, I think it is going to help faculty members and help higher education in the long run. It is individually in the interest of the faculty member. If you do it sincerely because the course level analytics, you would know whether it is I'm getting a right picture or not. If you're not getting the right picture, it means that something is wrong. If something, you tend to correct it. If every teacher corrects it, of course the program level analytics will get better. That's the idea. But majority faculty members, they think, why that additional effort? I'm doing well without that additional effort. Why? Just because some accreditor and some regulators and some IQAC wants it. But I have my own convictions that it helps the teachers to grow as a teacher. It helps the teacher improve their marketability, market value also, because the higher education context is now changing to outcome-based education. Not just higher education, the whole education setup is changing to that. So I think every teacher should try and understand it. It's not a rocket science. You're already teaching courses which are very tough, which are difficult to understand. Just convert it, give it a shape of outcome-based education, and then you will get a sense of satisfaction, and also will contribute to the purpose of the program. So that is it from my end. Any other questions? So if there are no questions, can we call it a day, ma'am?
So just let me ask the faculty, your faculty members, if you have any doubt, kindly unmute yourself and please ask the question.
Yeah, but one underlying thing is, unless there is a buy-in from the faculty member, the success of the model will always be questionable. Every faculty member has to do his bit or her bit in order to make the model successful. Just by technical, some software cannot do wonders. It is large part is still subjective, is in the control of the faculty members. And unless a faculty member, there is a buy-in and decides that I want to do it and I want to really practice it, the additional effort required is not much. But once done, then only the model will succeed. Otherwise, the model would be implemented, but the results will be questionable.
Very true, sir. I think there are no questions in the chat box.
So,
There is a query regarding startup. Is if a student sets up a startup, is that under create? So in the context of MSME related incubation related courses, sir,
it's a culmination. It's a PEO level competency, right? We spoke about PEOs. We spoke about the competency for entrepreneurship also, right? So it's a culmination of all the competency. Entrepreneurship is a PEO, right? That's a role. That's a profile. That's what you visualize. And not just at the end, immediately at the end of the program, but it's still PEO. And it is a culmination of all the competencies that you impart to the student.
Yeah, so a startup can just not easily be judged as a create or something. I mean, there can be no outcome like creation of a startup or something.
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much, sir.
Creation. It's a program level. It's a not a course level competency. It's a program or even higher than program. It's like career related. So PEO generally, a student, as a university or as a program, you should target at making entrepreneurs, and making entrepreneurs should be a part of the PEO. And the entrepreneur does not get made by a course, right? So multiple courses contribute, multiple competencies contribute in creating an entrepreneur. Right?
Yeah.
And
it's not. It cannot just be an outcome of a course.
Yes,
so
it cannot be. It cannot be a course outcome of a course. So generally, entrepreneurship would be mentioned at the PEO level, and for that competency, whatever competent that PEO, whatever competence is required, team skills, people skills, soft skills, hard skills, domain skills that would be factored in at the PO level, and those competencies will build with the help of the courses that you run through CO PO mapping. And then, as a culmination of that, the student will be able to set up an entrepreneurial venture. That is a PO. That's what you expect the students to. You expect after the passing out of the program, after acquiring the PO's competencies, the student should be able to set up entrepreneurial ventures. That's one of the competencies mentioned at the PEO level. Right?
Yes, sir.
So thank you so much. You have been a very learned audience. Thank you so much. And pardon me if I've been what you call sometimes while evaluating the POs being strong on the comments that I made. It has been very enjoyable session for me, and enriching session. I learned also from you. Thank you so much. Look forward to interacting with you more. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Have a
Thank you
nice
so much, sir. On behalf of our entire BSSS family, we thank you so very much. We had very many key takeaways from yesterday's and today's session, and definitely we would be in touch with you so that whatever we have built, further there are more things to be incorporated. Say, for example, we have mapped the COs with PSOs and PSOs with POs, but then there is one gap, that is mapping of COs with the POs. And regarding how to calculate, how software could be used to calculate the program specific attainment as well as program outcome attainment. So we'll get back to you, and thank you so very much, because it was a very short notice that we requested to take a session. And thanks to Professor Bama also. And thank you so much, sir, on behalf of everyone. Looking forward to looking forward to have many more sessions from your side. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you.